don't think there was really.
I wanted to ask you about so some of the things that these guys do pretty brutal and violent, and you kind of have to get into that headspace, and then we go cut, and then like everybody's like,
The torture scene.
yeah,
The torture scene, that was the toughest because I had to put myself in kind of deep psychological states and everything, and I was suffering and screaming, and it took a lot of vocal and a lot of, that was the toughest part.
what's your process into getting into the character when you show up in the morning and
Yeah.
you see me and you're like, hey, where you want me? I'm like, well, fucking go get changed, do your shit. And then at what point you start getting into the character's head? And I'm like, I'm not Philippe. I'm, right now, what, Eric.
I think it's when I'm changing and I'm starting to get, that's kind of the beginning of it. I'm starting to get into that world. I start putting on my outfit and everything, and I start getting into a very relaxed state. Believe it or not, relaxation is the gateway to all the other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're tense, you kind of block yourself off from your creativity.
Do you meditate
Yeah, every day,
every day?
every single day.
Is it like a...
I do TM
Okay,
in the morning and in the afternoon.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Clears up mind.
It clears up the mind. Yeah.
When you're on set,
But
do you
this
try
is
to...
different. This is different than meditation. This is kind of an artistic actor sort of relaxation. Tension is the enemy of art.
Can you talk about that a little bit? I'm curious. I've never heard anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, basically, at the end of the day, we have two kind of brains, jammed together. We have left and the right.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, and we have the motor brain all the way down the reptilian complex and everything. But basically, when you're in a relaxed state, you're a lot more creative. You're working from one part of the brain and not the other one.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to be really creative, you have to be relaxed. So relaxation is a really part of anything, whether you're a musician or an actor or a painter. Being in a relaxed state is where you're going to produce your best work.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a different kind of relaxation because you need to be relaxed, and at the same time you need to take yourself through deep psychological states
Mm-hmm.
and emotional states.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Which is different than when you're actually going through it.
Yeah.
When you're actually going through it, you're not working from that part of the brain. You're in survival mode, and you're working from the R complex part of the brain. So when you're screaming, because something's really happening, you're not creative at all. But when you're acting, you need to be so relaxed that you can produce that and at the same time continue to be creative and not shut yourself off from your creativity.
How did you... So, okay, that's very interesting. How did you... Where did you learn that?
That's very Strasberg-y. That's very method-y. Strasberg is all about the relaxation. In order for you to be in touch with, all the sensory world, the sensory part of everything, it first is relaxation. It all comes from the relaxation, and I kept that in my work.
Do you work with sense memory as well? From like
Yeah,
Strasberg?
I do. Actually, that's still very legit. I think it's super, super important for you to use sense memory. If you're not legitimately feeling in your senses what's happening around you, you're taking a crucial layer of reality or realism from your work. If I'm supposed to be in Siberia in the snow, and I'm in a studio in Burbank, and I'm not legitimately feeling snow,
Mm-hmm.
well, then I'm really not there in a way. I'm cheating it.
Mm-hmm.
So
You're acting.
I'm acting.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the idea. You're supposed to be really living it. So how do you do that? Well, you have to experience it and be through relaxation and sense memory. You recreate that in your senses to the point where it's just as real as if you were there.
Interesting.
So you kind of learn to rewire your brain so that you can imagine something and legitimately feel it in your senses.
Is this something that you've developed over the years
Over
in
the years.
acting classes and acting coaches?
Absolutely.
Do you have
And
anybody that you
and I-
recommend and a name drop that you would like to mention? A
Sure.
teacher that you owe a big thank you to, or anybody who made a big impact on your life in
Sure.
the
Absolutely. And just to finish off that thought, I still do sense memory every day. You have to practice on your own. I do relaxation and sense memory every single day. Those are the equivalent of doing scales for a musician. I really like Susan Batson's method. It's called Truth, the name of her book.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a guy here in LA. His name is Greg Braun, or Greg Brown. I don't know, whichever way you want to pronounce it. And he teaches at the New Collective LA. And I always always go with him every time I prepare. It's a mix of Strasbourg and Hagen.
Nice.
And I really like it because there's some very clear steps that you cover, and then you get into character. You know, from sensory and the private moment and the telephone call and